there. Good morning, everybody. Yeah, you turn your radio on and I'll put my headset on and we'll all be together in this. How about that? Welcome to Mary Wieden You. We've got a packed show. It's like take a fast ride through history as it unfolds on our eyes, right in front of our eyes. Wow, this is a time. It's rocking, isn't it? I mean, we're talking about Donald Trump's is not the campaign, his administration. I've got in the studio Dr. Glenn Antizzo from MC, and you know when he talks and he's on the show, it just flies. So buckle yourselves in because we're going to fly. How you doing? Welcome to 2025. How you doing?
Thank you. Doing great. It's good to be back.
Yeah, we were away for the holidays?
Yeah, I went home. I had gone to New York to visit my mom. My stepfather passed away, so I didn't want her to spend her first Christmas by herself. And then after about 4 days in New York, we got in the car again and drove all the way down to Florida to see my dad, who lives in Port St. Lucie near West Palm Beach. Spent about 5 days there and then drove back here.
Woo!
So
we put a lot of miles on. And you had your cat with you all the time?
Yes, yeah.
And he was a champ in the car, right?
He absolutely was. Yeah, no, he's great.
Yeah, usually people don't have nice things to say about cats in cars because they're not. I don't know why, but I guess they don't travel in cars very much or whatever. And he was very popular along the way too. Huh? People.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
We got him as a kitten at Marl, the Mississippi Animal Rescue League, in July, and my wife and I are so in love with him that we can't be away from him, so we took him with him.
Well, that's wonderful. That's what they're for. That's why we have our pets. That's wonderful. Well, so I know you've been keeping your eyes and ears on, everything, right? But what do you want to talk? Where do you want to start? The inauguration? You want to start with that? With Trump, or do you want to go to refugee release, or do you want to go to today's the filing deadline, by the way, for candidates in Mississippi's municipal elections to get their papers in. If you don't file by 5 o'clock today, you cannot run. So,
oh wow,
yeah.
Well, we've got we're going to have a vacancy in Clinton.
Yes, a mayor.
Our mayor is decided to retire, and so it'll be interesting to see what happens in our town.
Yep.
I think Phil Fisher's been a good mayor, though.
Yeah,
so
he has. He's kind of built Clinton. He sort of reminds me of Mary Hawkins Butler, who really has. I mean, she's almost gone out there with a hammer and built Madison. She's been at it for a long time, and she's built a beautiful city. She's running, though. Yeah. I can't think of who else isn't running. Let me see. Jackson is running. The other mayors, let me see. Brandon is running. I guess Pearl. I think maybe Clinton's the only one who's not. Unless somebody knows differently, you can let us know at 888-808-8637, or you can text us at 601-879-4395, or you can watch us supertalk.fm/Mary. But anyway, Jackson's will be interesting because you have an indicted mayor who says he's an innocent man, and why shouldn't he run? He thinks that if he doesn't run, it would signal that he's not innocent.
Right.
So he's running, and so there are several people running for there. Let's see. Who else? Oh, a couple of people running in Brandon. Butch Lee is running, the incumbent, and there's somebody else running. I can't think of who his name is. I know
Fred Shanks.
That's it, Fred Shanks, who's in the legislature. And he wants to give that up and become the mayor of Brandon. So, okay. That's interesting. And then I haven't heard much about, or anything really about, like Pearl, I don't know. Richland, I don't know. But Florence, don't know. But anyway.
Yeah, no, I've seen the billboards up all over the city for different candidates running for mayor and other positions in the municipal elections coming up. And there's some guy who's got a car that drives around downtown who's been doing it for about 2 years now. And he's running. In Jackson. He's running for mayor. Yeah, I do some business in downtown Jackson, and I've seen this guy sign there. I don't know if he's got a serious chance, but he got in early.
You come out the guy that rides in. He has the truck.
Yeah.
And has the sign.
Yeah.
I haven't been downtown in so long that I couldn't, I don't have any idea who that would be or anything like that. Or who knows if it's somebody, maybe it's a perennial runner. There are those people. Who knows? And by the way, speaking of Jackson, Ashby Foote from Ward 1, the Republican, has decided to become an independent to give everybody a chance to vote because so much of it's going to be on the Democratic side. And and here's the thing, folks. A lot of people don't know this. The primaries begin on April 1. Isn't that awful? April Fool's Day, yes. 3 weeks later is the runoff. The election is in June, and the person takes office in July. But anyway, yeah, April Fool's Day is the first. And so if in the state of Mississippi, though, for primaries, they are done by the parties. So if you vote in the Democrat primary on April 1, and there's a runoff, you only can vote in the Democrat primary.
Correct.
You cannot change parties during the primary season. So, but during the general election, you can vote for anybody that you want to. But in the primaries, you got to stick with the one what brung you. And if you're a Republican, you got to go Republican if you're going to do a runoff. So people need to know that. So that's Ashley Foote's news. And he's, of course, obviously running. But, that he didn't become an independent. He wanted to be open so that his people can be whatever they want to do. Whichever one they want to vote for. So anyway, that's that. So so tell me what did you think? Where were you? Well, you were home for the inauguration, right?
Yeah, no.
What did you think?
Home
Glued.
I was glued to the tube. Monday was obviously a big day because you not only had the inauguration, but you also had the college football championships that day.
Oh, so, and it was Martin Luther King's Day.
And it was Martin Luther King Day.
And so you were Ohio. You weren't Ohio. Who were you rooting for?
Believe it or not, even though I'm Catholic. I was sort of pulling for Ohio State. I have an affinity. All three of the universities I went to were land-grant universities, big ag schools like Mississippi State. And so my natural affinity is with Ohio State. But I got to tell you, I really found the head coach for Notre Dame a charismatic guy that I could see why his players would run through a brick wall or a plate of glass for the guy.
Really?
I mean, I really like him.
Cornell is a land-grant university?
Yeah,
really?
Yeah, it is. It's the only land-grant. It's the only Ivy land-grant school.
Thanks for sharing that. I didn't know that.
I'll be darned. Put that on your next trivia question. No, but that's fascinating. Well, now what vice president was Ohio State? Oh, what vice president?
Dan Quayle? No, that Quayle was from Indiana.
I'm pretty sure I'm right on this. J.D. Vance.
Did he go to Ohio State?
Didn't he go to Ohio State? Wasn't that where he went to school? Because he was wondering about going to the inaugural festivities.
Find out.
Yeah, because he was talking about was he going to, it was going to conflict, and then he said something like, "Well, I'll find out." People will tell me during the evening how the game went. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I'm pretty sure about that.
I did enjoy watching, the inauguration.
Yeah.
And it was nice because it was such a contrast from 2017, where you could feel like there was a tension in the air. People were already organizing the resistance, and I feel like this time, everybody's willing to give him a chance. I think the last 4 years,
some won't, but it's the usual gripers. Generally speaking, yeah.
I think that people are more open to him. I think his approval numbers are greater than they were. And, some of that's him, but some of that also is the fact that the last 4 years have been, in my opinion, a disaster. And
yes,
and so people are exhausted and are looking for hope. And that's what they see. And he has certainly gotten off to a running start. I don't know.
That's how he always is.
He started signing executive orders on Monday, and I'm not sure that he's stopped yet.
I don't know. Oh, what did you find? Lance, did you find?
The Ohio State University undergrad, Yale University Law.
Wow. Okay, so I was right about
2009 graduated from the Ohio State University.
And they are very insistent on putting that in there.
They're picky about that.
Yes, because there is an Ohio University, but who cares about that, right? But so what were we about? Oh, Trump. He can walk and chew gum. I mean, honest to God, I watched him that night sitting there signing things and answering questions and signing and answering questions like, whoa, but that's how he is. And a lot of these people who are in the press corps don't know what he was like in 27. They don't know what those years were like. Because people are griping, he works till real late at night, and we have to get up early in the morning to cover him because he's up all the time. Well, and that's how he is, though.
Well, consider if you are used to covering an administration that where the business didn't start until about 11 o'clock and ended at 4 in the afternoon.
Yeah, really. I just wondered how much of that Biden was aware of. I don't think he was aware of a whole lot.
No,
it's the cabal, as I call it.
To be honest with you, and there have been instances where either we have evidence that it's happened, or at least we highly suspect it happened. That other people may have actually been, making some of the key decisions.
I think so.
For example, I think it was Woodrow Wilson who had the stroke. And so his wife was sort of calling some of the shots in the White House
maybe
for a
so.
while. And then, of course, while it was never officially said, I think Reagan was starting to slip towards the end. Because it wasn't long after he left office that they announced that he had Alzheimer's, and there was chatter even when he was in office the last 2 years he was there that Nancy was making some of the bigger decisions. But it worked out well. I mean, if you look at some of the things that Reagan achieved when he was in office, a lot of it was his second term. The INF Treaty, the initial negotiations on the START Treaty, sort of a cooling down and winding down of the Cold War. All that happened in his second term. So.
Wow. Now there's a move afoot by somebody, I don't know, if it's a Republican, I don't know if it's House or Senate, who wants to amend the Constitution. Have you heard this one?
Yeah, I heard this.
You can have a third term.
Yeah, no, I don't understand why. This is one thing that frustrates me about the Republicans, is that a lot of times, and by the way, it's not just the Republicans, but the Republicans are the ones doing it now. Politicians get in there and then they overplay their hand. Be grateful you got him for a second term, and you got a really good guy, apparently, for vice president. If you get him a third term, that means that the other side will be able to get third terms. We had a president that got elected for 4 terms, and that's why we decided on 2 terms. And so I think this is a really bad idea. So you can mark it down. I actually said something criticizing the Republicans on this.
Yeah, really. Well, they don't stick together. The Democrats do. I'm neither Democrat nor Republican, but the Democrats kind of stick together. The Republicans now, like Murkowski and Collins, they don't like Pete Hegseth, so they're not going to vote for him.
Right.
Okay. But you know who's the surprise of all is Fetterman. Remember when Fetterman came to town? I thought his whole thing about getting elected was so he could get the insurance because he was sick,
right.
and his private insurance or whatever he was doing before that was running out, so he could get nice United States Senate health insurance to go to the hospital, which he did, and all that stuff. And I thought, boy, this is really bad. But he has awakened, and he's a pretty smart guy, and I think he's pretty reasonable.
No,
he's most reasonable of the Democrats that I can think of. It seems like. No,
he has been the voice of reason.
Yes.
He is now sort of sliding into that position that was occupied by Kristen Sinema and Joe Manchin before they left the Senate. No, absolutely. I think he's somebody. I think a lot of Republicans think that seems reasonable, somebody they can do business with, somebody that's willing to listen to a rational argument and make up his own mind. He's a bit unorthodox. I think he went to the inauguration in a pair of cargo shorts
and the hoodie.
And a hoodie. Yeah.
Well, did he get that bump gotten rid of? Because I've seen not a full profile of him, or where you see the full hours in the back of him, but he had that bump on there. I thought they called it the monster, but anyway, he had something in his neck. It's sort of like the alien. But I guess it's gone. I don't know, but yeah, he's a little. That's ridiculous, if you ask me. But hey, what the heck? He went.
Right, exactly.
And didn't make a big stink about it.
Unlike a number of people like AOC and others, not that they were missed.
Right.
So.
By the way, so the word is that tonight Pete Hegseth may get it. It may be confirmed.
Yeah, there is. My understanding is that he's already cleared the committee.
Didn't see that.
I was not aware of this because my natural field is not necessarily American government, but I read yesterday that the tradition is that you usually, once you're reported out of committee, wait about 7 days before you bring something to a floor vote. But Roger Wicker was able to get a measure passed on a pretty much strict party line vote. It was, I think, 17-16 in committee to bring up the vote like immediately. So I think it may be today or tomorrow that he gets confirmed. Yeah,
but they still haven't done the Attorney General. They still have Pam Bondi. They still haven't done her.
Right.
And I'm glad they got rid of Matt Gaetz. There was something about that guy.
I agree.
Always, I felt uncomfortable just looking at him.
I completely agree with you on that. I think Matt Gaetz was not a great choice.
No.
And look,
but these other ones are really good. I think.
No, and that's the good thing about the process is that you vet these people and you begin to find out stuff about them and you make judgments on whether or not you think that they would be a good person in the position. And I agree with you. I think Matt Gaetz would have been a mistake.
Now, this is awful to say, but the dog shooter might get it on Sunday. Might be confirmed on Sunday.
Yeah.
Wow, that was a stupid thing to do and a stupid thing to write it in a book, for heaven's sake. Why would you do that? But it has not come up. And I don't hear anything about that person having any pets, for heaven's sakes. Not going to be the head of the ASPCA.
Yeah, no. The other person that I've been hearing may have a little bit of a rougher time getting in there is going to be Tulsi Gabbard.
Yeah.
She doesn't have any experience. Oh.
Well, duh. How about the lunatics that they put in 4 years ago, like Buttigieg? You haven't heard one word about that clown and all that god awful traffic mess, air traffic mess during the holidays or anything else. You never hear a word about him. I know he's moved to Michigan because his husband moved to Michigan for whatever reason, a job or something. But you never hear anything. Now there's a real winner for you, and whoever else they had, I don't know, but they didn't have any experience either. But I think she's smart as heck. They all are, pretty much.
It'll also be interesting to see. I haven't heard any reaction yet, but Trump signed an executive order. I think it was yesterday to declassify the JFK and the MLK assassination files.
What do you think about that?
Well, I think the American people have a right to know. Of course, I wonder. I'm a little concerned for the families. Dr. King's family and President Kennedy's family, is it going to open up some old wounds that maybe, they felt like they had put it behind them? You never fully get over something like that, obviously. Right. But at the same time, I want to balance the public's right to know with, sensitivity to the needs of the families who were involved. These are two people that are, if there was a second Mount Rushmore of 20th century greatness, probably both of these men would be on that.
Kennedy brothers and then ML King.
Yeah,
there's fear about in the King family or in the King situation. There's fear that it would be revealed about his womanizing. There are all those allegations apparently about womanizing stuff that would come out. But as far as Kennedy, I think one of the grandsons said something about it's not interesting reading. It's kind of tedious or something like that. I don't know.
It may well be. And also, obviously, it's going to probably lead to more speculation about, was it the mob? Was it the CIA?
Exactly.
Was it Castro who had more than enough reason to want to do it?
Exactly. But Bobby Kennedy Jr., who's going to be our next HHS guy, he's cool with it. It's fine with him, what I gather from him. He's an interesting guy, isn't he? That is going to be the next Health and Human Services Secretary. He's going to tell us what to eat. We'll be back in just a few minutes. It's Dr. Glenn Antizzo here in the studio. Don't go away. Back on Mary Wieden You with Dr. Glenn Antizzo with MC. It's still called MC until what?
Until 2026. Okay. We change our name to Mississippi Christian University.
Well, that's the way that goes. What the heck? It's fine. But anyway, but you'll always still be known as MC. This is another thing I think it'll be.
They said that they chose that name so that we could continue using the initials MC.
Well, I think it's a good idea if you're going to do it.
Yeah, no, I have mixed feelings about this because I started working there when it was called MC, and I have a fondness for that. And I know that there's this feeling on the part of a lot of people that, the word college implies that it's not as good as the university. Right. Yeah, but that's not a problem for Dartmouth. It's not a problem for William and Mary. It's not a problem for Boston College. So, I personally reject that argument, but at the same time, I understand that the university needs to market itself in a certain way, and if the public has that perception, then we have to deal with it.
Yeah. There's been that controversy over the years, or whatever, an issue over the years, calling MUW, Mississippi University for Women, changing its name, and some people came up with some really oddball names. You can't call it Eudora University or whatever.
Mary, the two names that the school officially put out sounded like the type of name that you would see advertised for some trade school that's that's being advertised as on a commercial break for Dr. Phil or Oprah. I think that those were really bad names.
Well, I think if you want to keep the MUW, just add the word "and men" or two words. Mississippi University for Women and Men. Mm-hmm. If you do that, then you can still be MUW. AM, whatever, something where it retains its own identity, and that's a good thing about you. If it's going to, since we know it's going to change to Mississippi Christian University, and you still have an MC.
The funny thing is, I saw a commercial on TV a couple of times in the past week for another school. I honestly don't know much about it, called Walden University, and they refer to themselves in the commercial as the W. So
how dare they? Oh, honestly, can you imagine that? Well, if you'd like to holler at us, we'd love to hear from you. We're texting at 601-879-4395. Why bother with the phone number? Because people don't know how to use the phone. We don't do phones here for some reason. And you can watch us at supertalk.fm/Mary because we are online. So let's go from. By the way, I didn't know who it was at the inauguration. I was watching all that stuff, and I saw this little woman. in a red dress, kind of messed up hair, and she was involved in there somehow. She was like in the front row toward the vice presidential swearing in. Well, it turns out that was J.D. Vance's mother.
Oh, wow.
And he talked about her as, there's a woman here, he says, there's a woman here who, has been a drug addict and all this kind of stuff, da-da-da-da. Well, that's my mother, and I'm proud of her because she's clean and fine, all that kind of stuff. That was his mother.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's something, it was different. But that's okay. I mean, he should be proud of her. She did well. She cleaned herself up. I think that's cool. They're an interesting couple, I think. J.D. Vance, which, by the way, his name is John David. I wondered what the J.D. stood for. I didn't know.
I don't understand why I'm sure there's a good reason for it. People maybe were just called that when they were younger.
P.T. Barnum? What?
I've never understood using the initials or like using. I've noticed this here in Mississippi since I've moved here that a lot of people use their middle name as their name.
Oh.
Now, in some cases, I'm sure that they may be named after their father,
right.
And that's to differentiate father and son. My mother gave my sister and I names that sound very similar. My name is Glenn. My sister's name was Lynn.
Oh.
And so when she would call one or the other of us, the names sounded so close that we were always confused as to who my mother wanted.
Well, I was thinking about, my middle name is Lee. It's a family name from my father's side of the family. Well, also on that side of the family, my great-grandmother, who I never knew, was a Burpee. And, you think of the Burpee seed people, right? Mm-hmm. Only they didn't come from the money side of the Burpee seed people. But I'm thinking, if they had been the money side, my middle name would have been Burpee. So, hello, I'm Mary Wieden. But anyway, sorry, it wasn't the money side, so the Lee will stick. So let's go to, where do you want to go to? All the stuff that Trump is doing. Today he's going to North Carolina, then California.
Yeah, no, I think he needs to do that. It's one of the roles of the president is, first of all, being the consoler in chief,
yes.
that you go there and you let people know that their government hasn't forgotten them. But also, I mean, there was so much infrastructure damage done in North Carolina by that storm. For example, Interstate 40 between Pigeon Forge and Asheville, a lot of it's closed.
Ooh.
If you want to go to Raleigh from Knoxville, you'd now have to go up into Virginia and then come back down to the area around Winston-Salem and then proceed east. A lot of I-40 is closed. And, that's obviously a major truck route. 40 is a major east-west highway. And also, on the ground, these people are hurting. They're in remote areas. They probably did not have a whole lot of, for example, medical resources and stuff before the storm. And so you have to do that. You have to sort of put that back in place. And then California... the level of incompetence
yes.
on the part of the governor and the mayor to allow something like this to happen, is breathtaking. And California is a state that has recall. Newsom had already been the object of a recall vote. I would not be the least bit surprised if he gets recalled again. And I think that Mayor Bass, that her days probably in that position are numbered. And
cynically speaking, she'll probably become the governor and he'll probably become president. That's what these people are going to want. If that happens, we're really gone.
Well, that's only if Kamala doesn't get it right.
Oh, yes.
So... by the way, I didn't see the whole story, but evidently there's a news story going around that she's partially blaming her husband for her loss. Oh,
for God's sakes! Well, the Democrats try to blame everybody but themselves, so I wouldn't be surprised.
Look, the fact of the matter is that you had a bad economy, and that people are more worried about kitchen table issues like the cost of food, their rent, their car insurance than they are about the pronoun you're using or some DEI initiative, whatever. And the Democrats, as I said before about the Republicans, overplayed their hand. They thought they mistook the reason that Biden got elected is his last name wasn't Trump.
Well, okay, yeah,
and so because that's all he campaigned on, and that's not enough. And then Kamala, when she gets the nomination, is basically campaigning on, my name's not Trump. I'll be the first, fill in.
I grew up in a middle-class family.
Yeah. Well, no, but I mean, she kept hammering on identity politics. Basically, it was, I'm not Trump, identity politics, and That wasn't what the people wanted to hear. Now, the pressure is going to be on Trump and the Republicans, however, to deliver. Trump made, in my opinion, one huge mistake, and I hope he can recover from this. It's not a bad mistake, but it's going to complicate things. He's drawing too many people from the administration out of Congress. When you have razor-thin margins,
yes.
I don't think it's a great idea. And you could say that Elise Stefanik is from a safe district in upstate New York, but you said the same thing about Jeff Sessions in 2016. You thought, he's a senator from Alabama. Then no way Alabama's going to elect a Democrat, ... till they did.
Who did they elect in Alabama? I know they got...
I want to say his name was Doug Jones.
Oh, yeah.
And he served for 2 years.
Yeah.
And
is that when Tommy Tuberville got it?
Yeah, Tuberville got it after that, but again, I really hope you took. I really like Marco Rubio.
I was going to say, Rubio. You can't,
like him a lot.
You couldn't. Yes,
but here's the problem. I mean, I think Rubio, in some respects, is more effective in the Senate than he would be as Secretary of State. I'm not saying that he wouldn't be a good Secretary of State. Clearly, I think he would, but is he more valuable there? Like, just to give you an example, historically, Lyndon Johnson was, before he was vice president, was majority leader in the Senate. I think he took sort of a power decrease by becoming vice president for the years he was vice president. Of course,
listening to Rubio, I don't know, maybe it was during the hearings, his confirmation hearings. His intellect is so up here. It's like almost hard to listen to or to understand because everybody else is so, we are dumbed down. He's not dumbed down. He's very upper level. And I think that's what makes him a perfect person for that job. Not that these people he's going to deal with, around the world are going to be so upper level, but I think that will help, though. Well, in the long run, I think it will help. I'm happy for him. And I didn't realize he had 4 children, 3 of which are in college. He's got 3 of them. He introduced the family the other day.
I did not know
and he's
that
3 of them in college. Then there's I think it's 3 boys, and then there's the girl. She was shy. She's still in high school, but 3 of them. I mean, he doesn't look like he's old enough. He's like what's her name? Pam Bondi. Look like they got good injections. I'd like to know who does her injections because really, she's 60 years old and she looks fabulous.
Is she really?
Yes. You see, it's good injections and good cameras though too. This is another thing because sometimes you see she has some wrinkles around her eyes. Oh, God forbid. But anyway, I
did not know she was that old though. I thought she was in her 40s.
She looked like I think she looked like she's in her 30s. But anyway, it's like, oh, that little girl. No, she ain't no little girl. She just turned 60. She was 59 when she got appointed. But anyway, I know what you mean about polling. I think too from the from Congress. But I think over the years, don't you think Trump has really grown? Plus, he's got this wonderful woman. What's her name? Who's the chief of staff?
Yeah, no, I can't recall the name either. But I know who you're talking about.
Like
right? Yeah,
Betsy or Beth or that isn't it either. But she's sharp as heck, and she's a good foil for him. I think she reels him in. But I think he's learned to reel himself in though too. I think, because he's doing well. I think he's done well. He's done more, I think, in the last few days. I mean, especially look at the immigration situation.
Right.
And by the way, they're all getting, everybody's, oh my God, they're going to come and take your, ruin your life and all this kind of stuff. And they're having gyrations in Mississippi. Well, it needs to be made more clear, maybe by the administration, that they're aiming first for the bad guys, the murderers, the rapists, those people. That's what they're aiming for. And if you have those people in your community, you should want them gone. I don't care, what organization you belong to, whatever. That's what you need to do. And for the rest of the illegals, in my opinion, they need to be taught English, and they need to get in the process of becoming citizens. Then you can say we want people who want to do things legally. But if you're illegal, adios. If you're not, consiga legal. O ir a casa. That means get legal or go home.
Well, again, what the Jedi mind trick that the left likes to play is they use euphemisms like migrants, and they try to conflate people who are here legally with people that are here illegally. Nobody is arguing, I don't believe, to shut the door on legal immigration. If anything, I think there was a request to increase the number of those, what do they call them, HP1 visas that would allow people to come here who have skills that the country needs. We're simply asking that you come through the front door. If you try to crawl through the basement or get into the attic to get into the house, then I'm sorry, but you're not going to be welcome.
Exactly.
And also, Asylum is for people who are in reasonable fear of punishment or death because of their political views, that they've made enemies back home. It is not because you're in a bad marriage. It's not because you're looking to better yourself economically. Those are reasons to immigrate here if you want to. But again, it's not amnesty. I mean, not amnesty. It's not asylum, rather, but it's rather, you have to have a sound reason for getting asylum. If you want to come for any other reason, you are more than welcome to come, but just come in an orderly manner through the front door and obey the rules.
Exactly. We'll be back for our final segment. I'm telling you, I told you we were going to fly. We're flying. Up for our next final segment in a minute. We gotta go. We got 10 more minutes. I got Dr. Glenn Antizzo, I'm telling you, flying along as we are. I had put on there, but do you think that the Trump administration has gotten off on a good foot? Wouldn't you say? I mean, there's some things that are, I don't know about the Gulf of America. I don't know about that. And I don't know about buying Greenland or whatever. I don't know about that.
Yeah, no, I think what happens with Greenland,
it's strategic, right?
Yeah, well, here's what I think is going to happen eventually, probably. I think we'll probably get some concessions from Denmark where we will have easier access to establish basing there.
Yeah.
Denmark is a NATO ally. It's in their interests because it's a small country. If the United States can help them shoulder the burden of defending Greenland, I'm sure it's something they'd probably be grateful for. But because of the discussions, the one group of people that sort of got lost in the discussions are the people of Greenland. Now, Greenland, from what I understand, has got a population of 57,000 people. Oh. That's 1/3 the population of Jackson, I think, or half.
Really.
So I don't think it's a viable place to get independence and run their own affairs with the cost that would be. But let's just assume for a second they did. If they did. What I think at the end of the day, I don't think the United States is going to end up owning Greenland, but I think we may work out if Greenland were to get its independence, something that we have with former American possessions called a Compact of Free Association. When World War II ended, there were a number of island chains in the Pacific that were Japanese and that we captured. The Marshalls, the Carolines, and Palau, and the Marianas. And we captured all those from the Japanese. And they were placed after World War II by the UN into a collective bin called the Trust Territory of the Pacific Islands. And trust territories were things that the UN assigned to larger countries like us, Australia, New Zealand, Britain, France, to be the guardians of while they brought themselves along with our help to achieve independence or at least determine what it is they wanted to do. In the 1970s and early 1980s, those 4 island chains that I just mentioned were at a point where they could make that decision finally. The Northern Mariana Islands decided to join the United States, and so it is a territory of the United States now. Oh. The others became independent countries. The Republic of the Marshall Islands, which is where Bikini is, where we did the nuclear testing, the Federated States of Micronesia, and Palau. And when they got their independence, they cut a deal with the United States where we would have access to basing rights and the ability to move troops in those areas. And in return, we would pledge to defend the island so they didn't have to do it themselves. And we would give them access to certain services and programs that are normally just available to American citizens, like Social Security, like the post office, and also for immigration purposes, I think they're like first in line. If you want to immigrate, it's a lot easier to do so from one of those places than it is maybe from Italy or
Cuba,
whatever. And so I think that's the type of arrangement that you would see, some sort of compact of free association between us and an independent Greenland if Greenland were to get its independence. But I just don't think Greenland is viable. Now, as far as the Panama Canal,
viable. But we don't have any military there. That's what we want, right? We need it strategically,
we have
right?
Very light military. In northern Greenland. There's the Air Force has a base at a place called Thule, but it's just a weather station. I mean, there's nothing really there. The other thing is, of course, that there's worry because there are rare earth elements that are there in fair abundance, and there's a belief that there may be oil and gas there, and we do not want to see also, even if it didn't have those things, the last thing we want to see is so close to mainland North America a Russian or a Chinese base.
Yeah.
So. I understand the concern.
Which is why we got Alaska, right? That's why we bought Alaska. Or what did we buy Alaska from somebody?
We bought Alaska from the imperial government of Russia in the 1860s. Yeah, it was during the Andrew Johnson administration, I believe. William Seward was a politician from upstate New York. Lincoln appointed him Secretary of State, and then Seward stayed on, I think, as Andrew Johnson's Secretary of State, and purchased Alaska. I know that it's. I think that when Trump says stuff about taking back the canal and purchasing
that's
Greenland,
the other thing, yeah.
A lot of this stuff is posturing.
Yeah.
That he's doing it in order, to start a negotiation, or at least to put a chill down the spine of people that might be giving him a harder time than he wants to have to deal with.
He didn't want to deal with the Chinese, and they're the ones, according to him, anyway, have taken over the Panama Canal.
I don't seriously think that we're going to be repossessing the Panama Canal either, but we are conveying very publicly our displeasure with how the Panamanian government is conducting relations with the Chinese. I don't think the Chinese are actually running the canal. I could be wrong. I don't think they're running the canal, but I think they run the port facilities on either side of the canal, which is really important. No, I agree. Yeah. And we simply don't want to see the Chinese get more influence in places of vital strategic importance to us.
Yeah, a little close to home.
Right.
Wouldn't you say? Yeah.
But there was kidding around. Where Trump was calling the Prime Minister of Canada Governor Trudeau.
This isn't. Yeah, really.
Again, I don't seriously think we're going to take over Canada, but it's he was basically sort of poking at Trudeau, and evidently it must have had some effect because Trudeau has resigned.
Yeah, really.
So
that would give. But if we did take it over, it would give new meaning to the terminology North America, because that would be truly, because we're half of North America.
Right. Well,
now,
I mean, there are certain places that that are valuable to have, like Ontario or British Columbia, or maybe the provinces in the middle where you grow a lot of grain. But the problem is that there's my understanding is, and I've only been there once, and the only time I've ever been there was when I was like a 10-year-old kid. But my understanding is that New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, Prince Edward Island, Newfoundland are really poor. Oh. It would be, I heard somebody one time say that it would be like the equivalent of adding several West Virginias to the United States if we were to take over that part of Canada. But I don't know if you could get Ontario and Manitoba and Saskatchewan, but not take the rest.
Yeah. Well, but Trump will say, well, I have heard him say, well, we don't need their coal. We don't need their whatever else they have. We don't need their oil. We don't need their agriculture industry. We don't need all that kind of stuff. We don't need that stuff. And I'm like, well, why do we want it? For strategic purposes, apparently. Because remember, who was it who famously said, I can see Russia from my house? I don't think he wants that anymore. Boy, she's crashed and burned long ago, hasn't she?
She has.
Well, no wonder, But anyway, so posturing is your thing about what he's doing, all this kind of stuff.
I think that's what it is. A lot of it's posturing, and some of it, at least with Greenland, is like, a way of opening negotiations.
Well, that's interesting about, that they have precious metals. And I remember when Afghanistan went down. Afghanistan's loaded with that stuff, but they don't know how to get to it because they don't have the technology. And that was so stupid to let them have it. I mean, that's mindless.
One other thing, Trump did say that he was going to resolve a couple of conflicts. Mm-hmm. He has had some success with Israel and Gaza, in that he's, a deal has been struck and hostages have been returned, and he's made it very clear. And I like the way he did it, because he said there'll be, all hell will break loose, but didn't specify in what way, which is good. You maintain that kind of ambiguity and you leave all your options on the table. With Russia, he said that he would end the war before he took office. Right. Obviously, it has not happened. But I was encouraged by a tweet that he put out, I think it was yesterday, where he basically told the Russians, look, the nonsense has got to end. And what you need to do is you need to find some sort of a solution Otherwise, if you think the sanctions I've got on you now are bad, wait till you see what comes next.
And where was I hearing, too, somebody saying that we have no idea really how many lives have been lost by soldiers, how many soldiers have died. There are figures that say 800,000 Russians, 600,000 Ukrainians. I mean, that's just untenable. That's just, and it's even worse than that. I mean, it's so awful. You got
to believe that for both sides, it's been, as you pointed out, it's been awful. Ukraine has probably lost an entire generation of men. And that will create some demographic problems later because you'll have an overabundance of women and not enough men to be in a relationship with, I think, for a certain generation.
That's problematic. I mean, I shouldn't laugh, but it is.
Well, in China, they had sort of like the reverse problem. You may remember the one China policy. And so with the births in China and also, foreign adoptions of Chinese kids, my understanding was that for a while there were 5 men for every 4 women, which again creates a problem societally. But Russia, obviously is in some trouble because they've lost, as you said, a lot of troops. Having a draft is going to be a problem. The fact that you are bringing in troops from North Korea and from Iran in some cases, and from Syria shows you that it's absolutely ruinous to the Russians. If Putin had a good head on his shoulders, he would end this war.
And we got to end this program. I'm sorry to say. That's our music. Dr. Glenn Antizzo, thank you so much for coming in. Always a pleasure.
My pleasure.
And you'll be back soon, I hope. All right, everybody. Have a good weekend. See ya.